This is De Bellico, De Bello Gallico, Book 5, Chapter 48. This is the very last section in Book 5, and so we're going to wrap up for what we are going to read in Latin about this whole incident with the winter camps being attacked by the Gauls. So, Caesar has just found out from Labienus at the end of 47 that Labienus is surrounded and he can't come to their aid to help them help Cicero. So, it kind of starts by going on from that thought. So we start with Caesar, and then we have an ablative absolute after that. The AS in the middle of the ablative absolute refers to Labienus, and it refers to the news that he just gave to Caesar. Although, now deiectus, the perfect passive participle, refers to Caesar, because Caesar is our nominative. So having been disappointed by the expectation of 3 legions. So trium legionem is genitive plural. Ad duos redierat, which is pluperfect. And the duos refers to the legions. So Caesar expects to have 3 legions join him to help Cicero. Labienus tells him that he's not going to be able to make it, so therefore he can only expect 2 legions to help. The next part, this is the actual part of the sentence where Caesar is our subject. Tamen unum communis salutis auxilium in celeritate ponebat. And Caesar is the person who was ponebat, and he was placing. We have accusatives unum auxilium, which here doesn't mean one, but it means the only. The only auxilium, and we have a genitive communis salutis, in swiftness. And this is a nice chiasmus. We have unum and auxilium surrounding the communis salutis. So the help is sort of surrounding the safety. And so Caesar has made the decision that the best way to proceed is to do so very quickly, which is, unlike Sabinus and Cotta, right, who want to have arguments all night long and go back and forth, Caesar is able to make a decision immediately. He doesn't want to wait for Labienus or wait for any of the other troops to come closer, which is one of the things he mentioned later, that they ought not to wait for the rest of the army because it's too far away. Venit magnus itineribus in nerviorum finis, which is pretty straightforward. When it looks the same when it's present and when it's perfect, and if you consult your book and not the sheet in front of you, and you should have your book, you'll see that it's a short E, and that actually tells us that it's a present tense verb. So he comes in the fines of the nerviorum, which is the people who are attacking Cicero, magnus itineribus, which is ablative. And magnus means great or large, but here in English we have this saying a forced march, which means a really fast march where you don't stop. It's a special kind of march where, it's not a normal kind of march, is what I'm trying to say. Sorry. It goes by really fast. So he's going really quickly. He's not letting his troops stop. He's making them go faster than normal, and he is going to the nerviorum. Ibi ex captivis retin. Oh, that's not right. Ex captivis cognoscit. So he finds out from captives, quae apud Ciceronem gerantur, And the book tells you this too in the little notes, that these are some indirect questions. The quai and the quanto, and then you see there are present subjunctives gerantur and sit. Gerantur means a lot of things. It's gero, gerere. It's kind of like facio, facere, or even ago, agere, to do or happen. So what things, quai, he finds out what things are happening because it's this passive, apud kikeronim, which means it's Cicero's camp. So apud sometimes means at the house of, or among, and here it means where Cicero is. So he finds out from some captives what's going on. He gets better lay of the situation. Quantoque in periculo res sit. And the quanto modifies the periculo. And how great danger the situation is. Now remember, sit is the present subjunctive of est. Sum est becomes sim sis sit in the present subjunctive. So he finds out how terrible things are going. Tum quidam ex equitibus Gallis magnis premis persuadet. Quidam is really cui, which is dative, and dam, which means a certain, when you put dam on qui quae quod. And it's dative with persuadet, which we know takes a dative. So then he persuades a certain, and we have to, man, person, someone, ex equitibus Gallis. So that tells us someone from this group with magnis premis, make sure you make it plural, uti, so we have purpose or indirect command here after persuaded, ad ciceronem epistolam deferat. So this is kind of like Cicero got a letter out, and now they have to get a letter back to Cicero. Deferat is present subjunctive. Ferat is the subjunctive of fero, fere, tule, latus. Hanc Graecis conscriptum literis mittit. Hanc and conscriptum go together, and they're feminine because they refer to the letter, the epistolam. This letter, having been written, and then we have ablatives Graecis literis, he sends. So it's a nice interlocked word order. This, with Greek, having been written, letters. So it's a code. So that, well, he's going to tell us. But if the Gauls know any Latin, they probably don't know Greek, so he's going to write it in Greek. Ne intercepta epistula nostra ab hostibus concilia cognoscantur. So if you look in your book, you see that some of these things that end in A have long A's and some don't. So intercepta epistula have long A's. So they're ablatives, so it's a nice little ablative absolute. And nostra concilia don't. So concilium is actually neuter, so these are neuter plural, and they go together. And ne introduces a negative purpose. Lest is my favorite way. So he sends it with Greek letters, lest something happen. And our subject is nostra concilia. So you make sure you make it plural. Cognoscantur, which is passive and subjunctive because it's in this purpose clause. Sort of are found out. Ab hostibus. So if it ever gets intercepted, or with it having been intercepted, which means it means that if it's a conditional, right? If it's intercepted. So Romans, especially upper class Romans, a lot of business that was official was done in Greek, and all Romans who were upper class Romans would speak Greek fluently. We think of Latin as being a very universal language, so to speak, but to the ancient Romans, Greek was the universal language. So it would be expected that any Roman general or legate or quaestor that he sends a letter to in Greek would definitely be able to read it. Si adire non possit. Again, here we have sit instead of potest. We have possit, so it's subjunctive in this conditional with si. And it refers to the messenger, this certain person from the Gallic cavalry. If he's not able adire, which you can see is ire and ad, to go toward something, so you can say to approach. So he tells his messenger, if you can't get there, this is what you're going to do. Monet ut tragulam cum epistola ad amentum delegata intra munitionem castrorum abiciat. He warns, so the subject of posset is this certain cavalryman. The subject of monet is Caesar. Monet can mean warn or can also mean advise. And here it can work either way. He warns him, he advises him that he should do something. This is definitely an indirect command. So abiciat is present subjunctive. He warns him that he should do something. That he should abiciat, which is yakio yakere, with ab. Letragulam, the accusative. Cum epistola. And epistola and delegata go together. With the letter delegatad ad amentum. Intra munitatem castrorum. So if he can't get there, it's kind of like the letter was snuck out in a javelin, in a spear. So they're also planning to get it back in a spear if the messenger can't make it all the way. So just throw the message in. If you get caught or there's any, you can't approach if there's any problems. In literis, scribit se cum legionibus profectum claritate ad fore. So scribit introduces an indirect statement. And so se is our subject that's accusative. He writes that he. And so profectum describes to say. And it's a perfect passive participle. Cum legionibus profectum. It's from proficiscor, so it's actually deponent. So not having been verbed, but having verbed. And ad fore, we've seen a few times. It's an alternative to futurem esse. It's really a future active infinitive. And it's an infinitive. It looks really funny, but there you go. It's an infinitive because we're in an indirect statement. So he says that he will arrive, he will be there, clariter, having profectum cum legionibus. So he's telling Cicero that he's going to be safe and not to worry and that he'll be okay. Hortator ut, so hortor we've seen before, and cohortor, which is the same thing. We have the word exhort in English, to encourage someone. And it's deponent, so our subject's Caesar. This is what he's saying in the letter. He encourages, understood, Cicero, that he do something. Ut pristinam virtutem reteniat. So you have a subjunctive, because we have a indirect command here, that he reteniat his pristinam virtutem. So he's saying, you're doing a good job, keep up the good work. Pristinus means previous, right? So he's been very brave. He needs to continue to be brave. Gallus periculum veritus ut erat praeceptum tragulam mittit. So this Gaul, who's been mentioned before, who's supposed to deliver the message, periculum veritus. Remember, verior is deponent. It's fear. So make it a perfect active participle, not having been verb, but having verbed, periculum. And erat praeceptum is really pluperfect passive. But we usually see it switched around, praeceptum erat. As he had been praeceptum. What does he do? So he fears danger, and so he sends the spear. He throws it in. And then, I think this part is funny. Hike, which refers, it's feminine singular. Sometimes when we see it, it's neuter plural. But here it actually refers to the tragula. By chance, ad turem adhicit. Oh no, this thing. Adhicited adhicits, because it's present tense, ad turem. Ne ab nostris biduo anim adversa. And that's it. And so this is feminine again because it refers to the spear, the tragula. And it was not noticed ab nostris for biduo, which means 2 days. But then tertio die, which is an ablative of time when, on the 3rd day, a quodam milite conspicitur. Again, quo plus dam is a certain. And here it's ablative and it goes with this milite. It is seen a quodam milite. Dempta ad ciceronem defertur. So dempta is a perfect passive participle. That's in the vocab, and it's feminine because it refers back to the tragula. To Cicero defertur, present tense, passive. So make sure you get all that. All right, so someone finds the spear after 2 days. On the 3rd day they find it. They take it to Cicero. It's got the letter attached to it from Caesar. Ile, which refers to Cicero, per lectam in conventu militum recitat. Per lectam means to read something thoroughly, and it's feminine because it refers to the letter, not to the spear, but to the letter. So he reads it, having been read thoroughly, in the conventu of the militum, which is genitive plural, which means that he reads it first and makes sure he knows everything that says in it, and then he takes it already having been read through thoroughly. So he reads it in private first. Maximaque omnes laetitia ad ficit. So here, maxima and laetitia are ablatives. And omnes can't be the subject of ad ficit because it's plural and ad ficit is singular. So it has to be the accusative. And the subject is actually Cicero, or maybe could be the letter, but probably Cicero because he's the one who's the subject of recitat. He inspires, right, omnes, and then we have ablatives, maxima laetitia. Maxima is superlative. And one more sentence and we're done with book 5. Tum fumi incendiorum procul videbant. Ooh. Fumi is our nominative. It's nominative plural, and it's the subject of videbantur. Oftentimes videbantur means to see, but here it is actually the passive of to see. It is seen, or they were seen. So the fumi were seen, the fumi incendiorum, genitive plural, procul. So these are the soldiers in Cicero's camp who are looking out, and they see the fumi incendiorum. Quae res omnem dubitationem adventus legionem expulit. Which thing expulits omnem dubitationem, which is our accusative, and adventus is actually fourth, so this is genitive. It's dubitatum of the adventus, and then legionem is another genitive, but they don't agree. It's genitive plural, so it's of the adventus of the legiones. And then there's a little paragraph about what happens more in Book 5. There's more in Book 5. But that's all that we're going to read in Latin. And so there you go.